welcome to a new video. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. I know I haven't posted in a few days. I've been kind of busy with my day-to-day life. Been kind of hectic, but I hope your lives are going well, and I hope everything's going okay. And this story was actually recommended to me, and they were saying it is really good, so I have a lovely time reading this. And there will be however many parts to this because why not at this point? But let's get to reading. This is a Godzilla X Reader, My King by Creepy Noodle 105. Okay, what do you need to know? Your name, age 24, hair color, blah blah blah, the basic information. Tokyo, Japan. Colorful. It was the only word your name could think of as the tall buildings covered in colorful signs zoomed her sight. She was currently in a taxi going across the Rainbow Bridge. The sparkling blue waters shimmered as the sun set. She just moved to Japan not too long ago from hometown, and she wanted to start anew and explore the world and study new things. She, of course, is a scientist, so an average for her. As she reached her location, she got out and grabbed her large suitcase and paid the driver. It was very populated, to say the least, and the smell of savoring foods and drinks which were very hypnotizing. After a few moments of asking people around and using the little Japanese she knew, she found directions for her apartment. She paid and went up the elevator to her room. As the door opened, it revealed a nice, cozy apartment, obviously made for one person. Your name immediately got settled in and placed her study materials on the ivory desk in her bedroom. Since it was late, she opened her back door onto her little patio. She sat down on her patio chair and watched the glistening lights, chatter of people, and the amazing smell of street food down below her. She had an amazing view on the 15th floor, which was good for her study and had to the homey feeling. A good 10 minutes later, her eyes started dropping, and she yawned. She went inside and saw her alarm clock saying 10:30 p.m. She knew it was way past her bedtime, so she brushed her teeth, put on a nightgown, and went to sleep. Morning. Alarm clocks suck. Those were the only thoughts your name thought while almost smashing her alarm clock to pieces on her nightstand. She yawned and got up to stretch. After that, she took a shower, brushed her teeth and hair, and put a nice vibrant yellow dress on that flowed around her thighs and white cardigan, along with white tennis shoes. After breakfast, your name called her boss for a task she needed to complete. I've seen news about Godzilla being in the area, so be careful. All you need to do for the next few months is collect sketches and following its movements, and note its abilities as well. The client I've hired this time are picky, so get good shots. Alright. Well, you've got a task to do, so don't screw up like the others. Oh, and if you want a raise, get a blood sample. But try not to die in the process. I don't want another lawsuit against me. Your name gawked at what her boss had just told her to do, but she agreed nonetheless and hung up. What the? Her boss had to be on some crazy drugs or something because try not to die in the process? Seriously? This was probably not going to end well if I actually got hurt. And if I rejected the task, my boss would tell some other worker to do it. I sighed before collecting my bag and important gadgets, leaving the apartment. After calling a taxi and reaching her destination at the beach, she found a secluded spot and sat down. Taking her black bag and pulling out its contents, which consisted of a laptop, a clipboard, paper and pencil, and vials of any liquid samples. All she had to do was just sit and watch for any strange weather or water levels. Boring, right? Who would have thought I would have gotten to at least go out there on the field and actually do something like distracting whatever. Otachi or trespasser? Trespasser. Goodness gracious, my English is sucks. Time skip to a few months later. Boring few months had passed and nothing remotely interesting had happened yet. Although a few sightings of Godzilla had been found in Pacific Ocean, it didn't mean he would just magically show up and be like, "Hey, I heard you need some sketches and blood samples for me from your boss. Well, today is your lucky day, tiny meatbag." No, not at all. My boss's clients are probably getting impatient as we speak. Let's hope we don't get fired. Your name's as your name sat on the couch in her fluffy velvet robe and slippers, she watched the news as always. It was the average everyday weather until another news channel popped up, starting off with a stern reporter interrupted and immediately started to talk about water levels leaving and leaving the shore in such a Godzilla. Huge black spikes poking out of the water. Excited, your name jumped up and rushed to get dressed in black leggings and black tennis shoes and a blue V-neck shirt with her signature white coat. She tried. She tied her hair in a high ponytail and grabbed her bag, rushing out of her apartment and into her rented car. She drove quickly, and a few drivers honked at her, recklessly speeding and dodging as she hurried to the beach. Civilians on the sidewalk and in other vehicles could have mistook your name for driving a stolen car and speeding away from the police or something. It took a few minutes with halted breath, but she made it to the sandy beach and swiftly ran to the same spot she'd visited for months. Could this be? Would she actually see the monstrous beast in real life rather than watching the news and see the damage he and other titans had caused? Hopefully she would catch something. Anything? She was desperately in need for a sketch or any reveal of him in order to keep her job and to fulfill her curiosity. She watched as hundreds of people gathered on the beach and in buildings, such as hotels and business buildings. A few silent moments passed as everyone watched curiously to see if they would actually spot the gigantic beast themselves. With their questions, with their questioning, oh my goodness, would their questioning eagerness come true? Suddenly, fighter planes and jets rushed by, leaving behind the booming echo from their accelerated velocity. Passing by the area, soldiers dressed in tactical gear came through in tanks and heavy armored vehicles where the water change was occurring. The cold abyss of water started to drain drastically, causing panic in people, forcing them to run away from the change occurring in the endless body of water. As the water decreased, withdrawing from the beach rapidly, and doing so revealed exposed fish gasping for water impulsively. Out of the blue, a giant set of glowing spikes arose a few miles in the dark sea. It was small, but gradually increasing in size and steadily sailed closer. Godzilla was coming towards the beach. But why? Before she could think of any other questions, something vibrated in the water violently, shaking the land in a trembling haste until an unexpected creature arose from the water between the beach and Godzilla. It had sharp teeth and serrated claws along with forearms. Everyone that had stayed were now scattering all over the place in a hurry of alarm and fear, desperately trying to escape back towards the city. Water was thrown sporadically, dousing everything in all directions. some of it soaking the people, but most of all causing a humongous commotion in the sea. Any life leaving the danger zone. Fighter jets and planes started shooting the missiles and firing bullets rapidly towards the creature. Just before Godzilla could attack the Titan, it arose from the water, standing at its full height. Without hesitation, it wrapped its strong jaws around the unknown entity's scaled throat. Erupting a high-pitched screech from its throat, it lashed around aggressively until it could struggle free to fight back. They both roughly attacked, scratched, ripped, and rammed into each other dangerously until Godzilla had gained enough strength and found the perfect moment to rip its mouth wide open and shoot out a powerful heat burst of blue flames erupting from its throat, melting the creature from inside out. The Titan shaking violently and released its last pained cry until it no longer moved. As Godzilla dropped its lifeless body onto the sand, he heaved heavily before treading thunderously towards the water again. As the whole fight went down, she managed to sketch out a sort of clear image of Godzilla fighting one of its enemies while defending the humans from harm. She smiled to herself until she thought of mischievous plan. She glanced at the soldier caring for the wounded and finding their families from the hills she stood on. Finding the right time, nobody noticed. She sped towards the boat dock, leaving her things behind, only bringing her sketch supplies and 2 vials. As fast as her feet could take her, she found a small speedboat, unchained it, and climbed up onto it, making sure no one was around. She had driven a few boats around in her younger days with her family and friends, so she knew the basics of driving a boat. She steered the boat out of its contained spot and cruised off towards the ginormous Titan, starting to descend into the mysterious ocean. A few moments of guiding the water vehicle and watching out for a sign of the giant lizard. She couldn't see anything but the unsettled hills of water gliding across each other and the sun blazing down. She took her shoes off and swung her feet in the water to cool them down, not realizing any dangers that lurked beneath because that creature would stay close to the surface of a wavy water current. The distracted woman never anticipated that a predator swimming close below her was waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. She was bored and hot, her feet cooling, getting the cool sensation until she swore she felt some kind of movement below the sound of her feet. Movement below and sound her feet. She slowly looked closely into the deep water, paranoia growing, and the want to take her feet out was much more appealing. She couldn't see anything underneath the dark liquid, not noticing the giant silhouette speeding towards her until it was too late. So, we'll read one more chapter. Because, yes. The attack. All of a sudden, a giant blurred silhouette crashed through the surface, gripping its jaws onto the unaware woman's left leg. She screamed as loud as it shocked her, feeling the spiking agony sinking in. The realization that she had just been attacked by a shark was shocking, and she panicked. Not knowing what to do, all she could think was that she was going to bleed to death without saying goodbye to her family. As she sank hissing painfully back into the cruiser, her vision was starting to slowly fade in and out, her mind full of shocked buzzing. The only thing she noticed in her squinting vision was the crimson red spreading over the tainted wood flooring of the sinking boat, thanks to the shark. There shouldn't have even been a shark attack because they didn't attack humans. They feared them. They knew what we could do. but this one must have mistaken her feet for a meal. She knew it was still swarming around underneath her because of the occasional harsh bump against the cruiser and the water splashing around. With quick, panicked breath, she placed her hand down onto the wound as hard as she could, pressing down, which erupted a painful moan from her while she gritted her teeth. She, she, she searched around frantically for first aid, spotting one in the captain's cabin. She crawled slowly and cautiously to the room and pulled out a container off the wall. She practically ripped the box in half, looking for some cleaning alcohol, gauze, and painkillers. While she wrapped up her injuries, she took immediate notice of the raw, bloody flesh ripped from her calf, red liquid pouring from exposed crevices and sharp pain attacking all over. She bet her face was pale as she shakily gauzed her wound. She spotted a blanket on a shelf and wrapped herself in it. Unfortunately, she couldn't find a phone, realizing that she must have dropped it when the shark attacked her out of the blue. Her exhausted eyes were starting to drop, lids heavy with an invisible weight, while her weak body started swaying sideways. Suddenly, she dropped to the ground, unmoving, unconscious, and blacked out into an empty sleep on the cruiser in the middle of the ocean. Unknown, third Bravo. He sailed through the cold water like dangerous predator he was. His giant spike broke through the surface of the sea, alarming the molecule-like meat bags below. He knew the tiny creatures were aware and followed him in giant, flat boats, but he didn't care. He did get a surge of anger, though, when they shot their tiny metal pellets at him, which did absolutely nothing but irritated him further. Colossal spikes soared by the water surface, and it swiveled like a snake through the salty ocean. As he kept on traveling, he received a sense of familiarity when he brutally brought a hardship and a challenging trespasser. He continued paddling until a certain scent invaded his nostrils, the metallic smell of blood. He drove himself quicker in order to find out what this mysterious scent was in his territory. As he oh my goodness, as his enormous form broke free from underneath the ocean, he remarked a speeding silhouette beneath the white transportation system of the molecule meat bags. With no spikes or sudden appearance of a titan, it seemed like an interesting sight as it continuously rammed underneath it, damaging the white object floating on the water. As it sailed closer, it finally rose out of the salty ocean, glancing at what the tiny predator was trying to get. It wasn't a fish or bigger sea creature, it was rather a meat bag. It seemed injured from the blood pouring around its leg. From the source itself, it suggested the sea creature attacked this damaged meat bag. He wasn't gonna lie that he felt a bit sympathetic for it, even though he really didn't care about it. There were a million of them anyways. His purpose for living was to protect his home from enemies at all costs. In the end, it was really all the meatbags' fault for building their homes near the coast, where blood-hungry titans rise from the depths of the ocean to destroy it. He just didn't understand it was as he was practically invincible. But the thought of dying alone in the middle of the ocean, weak and unable to defend themselves, wouldn't go over his head, so he reached his hand towards the tiny creature. He cradled it and glanced closer. Her scent, and from what he had seen from the meatbag's population, was a female. She looked sickly pale and fragile, as if one touch could kill her. He thunderously marched with his hand above the water towards land. Oh, excuse me. She needed help from her kind, even though he knew he could have continued to bring her further inland, as there were still areas destructed from a past battle. He decided to leave her on the sandy terrain. He scanned the region from the dead Titan, wanting to dispose of the rotting corpse as it was radioactive. Hosting the head firmly gripped its clawed hands, dragging its heavy body towards the dark waters, descending deeper as the pressure and any deep sea predator would utterly consume it. A few weeks later, your name awoke very confused and dizzy. Everything seemed blurry and her mind was aching with a hammering headache. A slight burning pain occurred in her left leg, but she noticed it was wrapped. She peered lower. She peered lower slowly, noticing a brand new set of gauze underneath. What she observed was a hospital gown. Beside her were tall beeping machines and drip of the IV bags, connecting her to her inner vein by a long catheter to keep her stabilized. After a while, she managed to gradually form a better grip on reality and identify she was in a hospital room. She only remembered bits and pieces of what occurred, but everything else was either static or blurry. After a few minutes passed in silence, other than the constant beeping machine when a nurse opened the door and walked in, she stood next to the bed writing that what seemed to be numbers from the screen onto a clipboard. She looked up your name and smiled warmly, saying, "Hello, your name. How are you feeling?" The woman spoke with a small, raspy, "Good." It seemed as if the nurse knew what she was thinking and lifted the glass of water to her lips, which she drank greedily, savoring the cool, receiving sensation of water gliding down her throat. A couple of nurses and doctors had entered through the day and asked how she was feeling and what she remembered. She answered the same thing each time. "I'm feeling okay, and I don't really remember anything. What happened?" But they didn't know. Time stick. One long month had passed with no issue conspiring, which gave her the time to heal and recall what really transpired. After the month was over, she was checked out and could finally leave the hospital and be off the annoying IV and most medication. Being bedridden for a month was extremely boring, and not being as sharp as she was supposed to be stuck. Now she could leave this mundane place and get some answers while she was also trying not to get fired. But I mean, who would exterminate an injured employee? Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed this part 1 of Godzilla X Reader. We'll continue this on just like the other one. Hopefully it does not have a bad ending like the other one. Cannot go through that again. That was too depressing. But this was also recommended. I will put down in the description down below who recommended it. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all, and bye!